Hello and welcome to the show. We have Chris McKinnell with us again this week. Hello, Brandon. How you doing?
Hey, good. How you doing, Kathy? How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you letting me come on again.
Oh, we are happy that you're able to come on again. We really wanted to do like a part 2 with you. So we're thrilled that we can do it this week rather than having to wait. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to all the viewers. I did put the wrong time on somehow on YouTube. So I apologize for that. If you may have to if you're watching the replay, welcome. So how you doing, Chris? How was your week? You were telling me you had a little bit of trouble yesterday.
Oh, the thing is, there are always problems in life. And there's always a lesson to be learned from these problems. Sometimes that lesson isn't so obvious, but your reaction to the problem is. For instance, yesterday I managed to trip, fall, break my shoes, rip my pants, hurt myself, and absolutely destroy my tablet. It's completely unusable now, so I can't go anywhere anymore because that's my Uber and WhatsApp and everything else.
Yeah,
but these things happen, and you just adapt.
Might be time to stay still then for a moment. If
exactly.
You are.
That's
exactly.
actually
Yeah, I think
what Chris said.
Trying to say you shouldn't have gone out yesterday.
See, it's. I think a lot of people, they feel mixed up when they're like, "Is this some sign, or am I just interpreting it this way, or am I just trying to create something out of nothing?" But essentially, isn't that what we're all doing as being a human? Create something out of almost nothing. We're making our signs, we're making our life, we're making our reality constantly. So of course, to shape things, like we talked about in the last show, belief is everything. So to shape them, to fit a healthier narrative, it seems like a good idea to me.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing, I could obsess about this. I could be miserable. I could be upset. I mean, I have no money at all. So this is not actually going to be easy for me.
Right.
But having said that, if I allow that to hurt me, if I allow it to cause me stress and pain, then something that happened yesterday is still hurting me today. And that just isn't appropriate. Yeah. Learn, move on, solve it. Every problem comes to you with a gift in its hands. You get the gift when you solve the problem.
Absolutely.
This is very true. Also, staying present and kind of absorbing the moment will really help. I found that the other day. Actually, I put that as a Facebook status because I had to go for a doctor's appointment downtown, and it was one of those appointments. I don't know how long this is going to take. This could take an hour. It could take 2 hours. I have no idea. And I get there and I put my credit card in. It's like, can't read card. I'm trying it again. Can't read card. So I'm like, start digging in my purse. I'm looking, oh my God, now I'm looking for change. And somebody else comes along and they try the machine and it's like, can't read card. So I know it's not my card. I know it's right. So I finally found the money and I start putting it in and it's spitting it out at the same time. So I'm like, I'm going to be really late for this appointment. So there's literally a lot, like from here to like there, like where it's a different machine. So I drive over there, I go to park, and this lady says, "Oh, do you have a long appointment? Because we've got this ticket stub till like 6:00, which is the amount of time." And I'm like, holy cow. Like, holy cow, after, but I didn't really go into a massive panic. I was just like trying to solve the problem in that immediate moment as opposed to panicking. Right. And I find that kind of helps. It's like that answer comes through.
Yeah. There are two wonderful parables that I know that illustrate this idea of being present in the moment and how important that is for your happiness, for your bliss. Do you know the one about the Buddhist monk and the strawberry?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't.
It's pretty simple. Buddhist monk is being marched to the executioner. He's about to have his head cut off. And he looks down and he sees this one perfect strawberry. And he bends down and he picks it and he takes a bite and he has this look of absolute bliss on his face. And the executioner looks at him like, "Are you insane? I'm about to kill you." He says, "That's in the future. Right now I'm enjoying a strawberry."
Love that.
Yeah. Be present in the moment, because
Yes.
you can't do anything except learn from the past. You can't change it.
Right.
And the future isn't a guarantee. So enjoy now.
I find at times the past is really hard. That I think that's, it's not even so much the future, that I particularly put time towards, except maybe the end goal. But I struggle personally with past. And that it is such a hard thing to move away from. And, you have to rebalance yourself. And sometimes it can take, people will go, "Well, I can't let go of it." Well, you can let go of it. I mean, you can let go of it. Absolutely. You can. Sometimes you might find yourself drifting back there. So you got to recalibrate and stay that focus, or sometimes play it out and just let it experience the emotions of what it is and go through them, whether it's anger or sadness. And maybe you have to have a mini temper tantrum inside of your brain for a little bit and get those energies out, because so many times we're told, shove it down, shove it down, shove it down, that when we're shoving it down, we're not truly allowing it to be released. So sometimes we have to release it, have a good screaming fest in our cars, or turn on heavy metal music and bang your head for a while, or do whatever it is that you need to do, get it out, and then you can stay present again.
Well, the thing about anger, and I do get angry, don't get me wrong, but anger is always a secondary emotion. It's a reaction to something else. For instance, a friend of mine, somebody I absolutely love and adore, she's having some problems and I'm angry about it. But the anger is because I'm afraid for her. I care about her.
Right. Yeah.
Those are the real emotions. So when a person is angry, they should take a moment and look at why. Is it because their pride is hurt?
Yeah.
Is it because they're afraid? What is the anger covering up? And deal with the primary emotion. That makes it much easier to get rid of the anger. And it is okay. It's okay to be angry, but look at why you're angry.
Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people won't do.
No.
Because they won't, sometimes we have to take that responsibility for ourselves at the same time. Was I foolish in this moment? Did I assume something in that to create?
Is it a reaction to embarrassment?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so, like, as you said, you get to that root cause of what it is, and it really helps us. I mean, we're not meant to focus in on it. Yeah, maybe I was embarrassed for that a time period, or maybe, my assumption created this problem because I had an assumption in my head, or maybe I was really hurt. My feelings were really hurt because of that action. But we tend to shift it. We tend to shift it either onto somebody else or onto another situation or whatever it is, and we just don't take that responsibility. I was going to say blame, but I was like, that's not the right word. It is the responsibility of it.
Yeah, anger becomes a shield. My best friend, and he is my best friend in the world, he uses anger to protect his ego, his sense of self. Many people do that. Many people in my family do that. But it is a reaction. It's a defense mechanism. And the same thing with forgiveness. When somebody hurts you, forgive them, not for them, not for their sake, because they honestly, most of the time, don't care. You know, if they're a person out to hurt you, they don't care whether you forgive them or not.
Exactly.
You know, but your forgiving them releases that burden from you.
Yes.
And that's why it's important.
Absolutely.
It's huge. You got to have that constant conversation with the ego, which really pulls as a separate part of yourself. That's its point. Individuality, separation, you know, to even cope with that, to keep yourself alive, survive. But there is I believe there's a difference between healthy ego and, you know, obviously toxic ego. And I try to explain it in terms of, it's like a window, you know, the window of the ego. It's not that big. It can see some stuff, you know, but once you kind of expand that consciousness into a group think or, you know, tribe kind of thought, at the very least, you start opening up that window a little bit more because you're putting yourself in other people's shoes. So that's why I always say the ego isn't bad, but it's only going to give you such a small portion of what is actually happening, you know. And I think that's what I would argue as far as our state of consciousness is so important. Yeah, our state of consciousness constantly expanding. I think that's part of our purpose and part of our point here is to get to that, you know, a constant, ever growing, always learning space. I think we were talking about it on last show, Kathy, weren't we? Where we were like, you know, if you stop learning, you're pretty much not living anymore, or something along those lines we had talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, okay, so let's shift the topic a little bit, because sometimes intuitive psychics, people, guidance counselors, life coaches, they help us sometimes guide us through those problems and issues. But we were talking about before the show, we were talking with Chris, and you know, one of the topics that we did want to talk about is and that Chris had mentioned is about psychics and the things to watch for, the things that really point out a good psychic, somebody that you can trust, or even a paranormal team. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
The first question I have real quick, are psychics relevant, or is this all just a way to pass the time? Is there a valuable place for them in society is my first question for all of this.
Apologize.
Oh,
this afternoon, I apologize.
Oh, say again. It's breaking up a little bit. My camera seems
exactly. My internet is not very good today. I apologize.
There you go. Okay. We got you. Mine is weird too. It's being all breaky. Yes.
You're kind of stalled now, Chris, but
okay. But I think. All right.
Oh.
Let me know when I can talk again.
We hear you now. Go. Okay.
All right. I think psychics can be useful, but nobody should change their lives because of what a psychic tells them. I think that's insane. I don't care how good that psychic is. You know, if somebody says to me, "Don't go outside today, you're going to be hit by a bus." Well, I might still go outside. I'll just be very careful about watching for buses.
Right.
Yeah.
You know. But if you're going to go for a psychic reading, let's say, for instance, you contact someone who's passed away. I would Ted, even though you don't have an Uncle Ted. And if they start talking to that non-existent uncle, then you know they're a fraud.
Yeah.
No, it's far better to do it that way. And then if that medium starts talking to a spirit who's actually present, then you've got somebody real.
Mm-hmm.
But be careful, because cold reads are very common.
Yeah.
People who are just very good at picking up on your cues, whether it's how you hold yourself, the way you're speaking, whatever it is. I'm very good at reading people. And I can do that without using any psychic abilities.
Right.
And There are a
NRP,
lot of people out there
or
who do that.
Neuro-linguistic programming. There's a lot of,
Yep.
watching the cues, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of time people do that unconsciously and think they're a psychic. It's not that they're insincere. It's just they're just really good at reading people, and it has nothing to do with being a psychic.
It's interesting because I do that very well. I've always been able to do that. Like, even watching a horror movie, I'm like, well, that's the character. That's who it is. That's who it is. You know what I mean? And there's never been a crime drama except for one show that I did, one movie that I didn't get because it was so well done. That was Scream. I could not get the characters in Scream, the murderers in Scream, but that was the only horror show I've ever watched. But everyone, I was just like, there's something like, I knew who it was. And it's interesting that you say that. So I like to do live video readings, especially now with COVID, I don't really have people at the house, but I really prefer is the phone readings, because the phone readings, I'm not seeing them and I'm just allowing the energy to flow through. Absolutely. So, and then you're just going with what it is that is coming through to you. And,
see, I like we've talked about this before, Kathy. I like the chat ones because it's even another layer of information that you don't have, and you're just seeing somebody type. And I'm like, oh, when I can do like a full reading and connect to everything. And thank goodness I am a fast typist.
I hate texting. See, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm a lazy texter. I'm like, what?
So like that's another level, and I really love doing that myself, because the very first thing I will always provide is validation. And this is what I train other psychics to do is, if you are what you say you are, then the very first thing you need to do is validate why you are a psychic. Connect to them immediately. What do you feel right now? Where are they right now? What's going on? What is that state of being? When you can give that validation, you automatically remove that level of doubt, and you initiate the rapport of trust, because you're like, hey, I feel you, this is what I feel from you. Also gives a good out for the client if they're like, that's something I'm not trying to pay attention to in myself, or I don't feel that you're very connected, and done right there. Next person or next session, or maybe try again another time. There could be so many circumstances, but that validation first is key for what I train with.
Yeah.
What are some
I'm a psychic, but honestly, I'm always surprised when I get it right. I am.
I'm still always surprised.
Wow.
I still get that surprise and that like amazement. It's like when I connect with somebody, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how did you even know that? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm freaking out too. This is so crazy.
I like it when people, because I'm the sort of medium. I'm one of those people that I don't do a lot of medium readings. If that makes sense. Like I don't, if somebody came to me and said, I want to, try to connect with this, I can't guarantee that they're going to come through, and and you feel bad if they're not going to, and it almost, you're kind of put in this place where you feel like you want to help them, but you're not getting anything. And then because of that interpretation, they're like, oh, well, I don't know if you connected. I don't know if you're real, but let me just do a reading. And then as I'm doing the reading, I'll be like, oh, wait a minute. I'm hearing something about this. What is your, I had a reading the other day. I was like, I'm hearing something about your dad, and he's talking about trains. Well, the guy had put a train set down into the basement of this woman's house. And then I heard these other two names that came through, and she's like, oh yeah, those are his brothers. And, but let me do this naturally and see what comes through, rather than it has to be. I connected with one lady, her daughter, and, she was to some degree able to almost have a full conversation with her daughter, but I didn't know that that was why her reading was. I was just like, I hate to ask this, but I'm getting a young child coming through, like a teenager. And I need to ask if this is connected to you, because I don't know, but this is what I'm getting. And you don't know if it's going to be a daughter, a niece, cousin, sister. Like, I don't know who this is, but there's somebody trying to come through that wants to connect with you.
And Kathy, that actually is a fantastic thing to point out to people, is when you talk to a medium, the medium shouldn't be reaching out to one particular spirit. They should be talking to the spirit that presents itself to them.
Exactly.
Because that soul has free will. If they don't have a reason to come through, they're not coming through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And forcing it can open doors that you probably don't want to open.
Yeah.
And also, too, is, you know, when you're forcing it like that, you almost feel like, to me, it's like bugging a stranger on the street. You know, can you imagine if somebody said, hey, I want to talk to that one over there, and you're like, poke, 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 poke. Hey, come on. Hey, like, that's how I feel. And I feel like it's just not right to do. And, you know, for me, if they say, look, I'd really like to connect with my mom, I will see if they want to connect. But I'll say, do not tell me anything about her, because if this does not resonate, it's not for you.
Exactly.
Okay? Because when you're opening up like that, like you said, other people can take that entrance. And so, you know, let's say I see a woman, and I've had this happen where I've said, okay, you know, she's showing me a nightgown with pink flowers, and that was a real thing. And she goes, well, that's what she passed away in. Okay, boom. Now your mom is showing and presenting herself. Now I have that permission to talk to her. We'll see what comes through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also find too, with medium readings, those are the hardest, because people, you know, especially if it's somebody very close to them, they don't want to stop the conversation.
Yeah. And
it's you know, it's heartbreaking, and, you know, or they want to continue reconnecting at that same time.
Yeah.
And at some point, you know, I've had to tell people, they're done. They're done.
Absolutely.
Like, you have to live your life now.
And you know that, thank you. That's something that, because I do a lot of grief counseling.
Yeah.
People who go to mediums, it's never going to be enough. And they're always going to want more.
Yeah.
You know, you've lost your son, and now you want to reconnect, and you want to get back, and you want to get back, and you want to get back, which is a great thing if you're one of these mediums who's sucking the life out of people and just taking them for a ride. But it isn't healthy, and it isn't the purpose of life. Death has a reason, you know. Death gives an immediacy to life that's important. It gives us a reason to show our love, because without that time limit, well, you can take the rest of eternity before you get around to showing somebody how much you care. You know, tomorrow is just as good as today. So I think it's vitally important that we die. It gives meaning to our entire lives.
Right. I think Brandon's just reconnecting to get a better signal. So, but no, you're 100% true. And it's you know, it's interesting, because even as you go about your day, and I really feel that taking time to yourself or doing the healing that is necessary is absolutely what is needed. But at the same time, we always have that in the back of our head going, well, I can do that tomorrow.
Exactly.
I can do that tomorrow. And, you know, sometimes we do need that time to just connect with ourselves, or recollect with our thoughts, or whatever it is. But it is that, you know, if you're in that constant state of, I can do tomorrow. Yeah.
You're missing out on life today.
Absolutely. What are some of the other things?
I'm a world-class procrastinator.
Right here. I have ADHD, so I find that, you know, you can end up scrolling on your phone for hours, and then you're like, oh shit. And it's not that you don't want to do it. It's just, there's that connection. It's that, I know that they call it something, but it's like that. it's not lazy, it's not procrastination, it's that motivation. And you have to really sometimes work at that motivation. Mm-hmm. And so I find time periods are so handy for me, especially if I know that I don't have anything throughout the day. If I have something that I'm supposed to do, I can connect around it. But if I don't have anything to do, my day can be like, shoo, gone.
Yeah, I don't have ADHD, but I find I'm far busier when I'm at home than when I'm out on the street. And I don't have to have anything planned for my day to become booked. And it'll be 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and I haven't had breakfast yet.
Yeah,
because I'm answering a million people who need help.
Yeah, yeah, that's and you get lost in that. And I mean, but here's the thing, Chris. I mean, those people are probably extremely grateful for the help that you have given them, 100%. You know, but what other kind of things would you suggest that people look for? What would be some signs, either positive or negative, when let's say they want to get a psychic reading, or even a paranormal investigator? So that, I mean, that's something that's another realm that we can kind of
that's a major can of worms. But
yeah
starting just with psychics, for me, look for the evidence. And I do this with myself. I do it with psychics I work with. I don't believe anything I feel until I've backed it up with evidence later. I'm certainly not going to share these strong feelings with a family unless I have evidence to back it up. I can ask questions, that's fine, but I'm not going to give conclusions based on spirit message. I simply don't have enough faith in myself to do that. Nor should anybody. You know, ask
an investigation, or when you're helping people, mostly is where you're.
Exactly. I do not do readings.
Right. Yeah.
You don't bother trying to get a hold of me to ask me to.
I was going to say we should
a reading or anything. It isn't going to happen.
Up there, because don't contact Chris for reading. So
no. Yeah, I only use it for my work. I only use it to help people in cases.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means helping a spirit to pass over. One of the things about being a psychic is your aura burns more brightly than an ordinary person's, and you do attract spirits. A lot of people go through life thinking, well, I keep moving and the spirits keep following me. Probably not. No, it's you're a psychic, and you keep attracting more and more of them, because most ghosts are lost in the darkness. And when they see that light, they're attracted to it, just like a moth to a flame. And maybe they've got a message they want to get across, and you're the phone. You're the one that they're trying to get to, so they can get that unfinished business accomplished, and then they can pass over.
I've used that exact analogy in the past too. It's like, you know, I've tried to explain to people on cases, you know, where, you know, it's like, what if you're walking down the street and it's dark, but you see this light over there? Where are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to go over to that light. You're going to be drawn to that light. You're going to look at it as nourishment or food or security or safety, or, you know, as you said, being able to pass through a message or get a message to someone, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, as for your other question about paranormal groups, there's a reason the Warren Legacy Foundation exists,
right?
And it exists because I have seen far too many groups. I mean, the vast majority of them are in it for clicks, likes, money, attention.
Yeah.
It is very easy to lose yourself in this work. Don't get me wrong. People want to treat me like a superhero, and I know better. My feet aren't just made of clay; they're mud. You know, I am such an ordinary person. there's a tendency, like, oh, you do that? It's like, yeah, I help people. That's all. Just like you help people, we all help. That's our purpose in life, is to learn empathy and compassion for others. So if you see a group that's advertising their cases online, and they're showing the families and they're showing details about that private case, don't trust that group.
Yeah.
One of the things, back in the day, my grandparents, of course, had no choice. They had to advertise their cases because otherwise nobody could know who they were.
Right.
Well, the internet has taken that need away, and we don't do that. It's something my grandfather and I clashed on often, because I was the one going on the cases, and I would see, literally one time I went to Tewksbury, Massachusetts, my very first night. And it wasn't my grandparents' fault. Somehow the family had called looking for help from the police, and it ended up on the police blotter, and a reporter had gotten a hold of it. So when I arrived, there were hundreds and hundreds of cars in this neighborhood, all trying to get into this house.
Wow.
And they saw us walking up. They're like, "Hey, man, can we come in with you?" No, go home.
Yeah.
But I saw the damage that this could do. Yeah. And we treat our cases like medical cases. You're a patient, and we're not going to advertise your personal details. Now, just like a doctor, though, we'll offer a case history, maybe in a journal or in our case on video, but it will never include where you live, your name, your personal details, just enough to educate the public, because that is important. I feel education is the key to preventing others from getting hurt, just as my grandparents did.
Yeah.
I've definitely got some questions here for you, Chris. One of the first being, this is not lucrative. This is not a lucrative job. Why even do this if there's no way to really make money from it? I mean, oftentimes, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to places where, they might even just be poor, or maybe even just middle class, people who aren't going to pay, hundreds of dollars an hour just to have somebody come and help them with this inhuman thing.
If somebody is charging to help you, do not go with them. We don't charge a thing ever.
That's exactly. And that's the way it should be. That's 100% the way it should be. There have been exceptions in regards to maybe travel fees or something along that line. But you know what?
My grandparents used to charge for that.
Me the $50 in gas, good enough. If somebody's charging to be doing something like this, walk away. There's other teams. There's other help. There is, contact somebody, contact the Warren Foundation, contact TAPS, contact, somebody with more recognition. Most of the time they will get back to you, if at the very least to direct you towards a reputable team, possibly in your area, or worst case scenario, maybe they'll have to do something remotely. Or like, even if it's a conversation, but giving the tips and the tricks and the help, can sometimes even be done remotely. And we've done that before in the past, Chris, where we've worked remotely. And sometimes that alone can truly, help or take a look into the situation. But people that are, telling you that I'm going to come in and do this, that, and the other thing, and here's your bill, and this is what I'm charging. Close that door.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, Brendan, I'm on Social Security. I have a disability, and honestly, I think of it as a blessing. God's given me the opportunity and just enough income that I don't ever have to ask anyone for anything. And even when I wasn't disabled. I still help people all the time, and it had nothing to do with cash. This can be very lucrative. There are plenty of people out there who make money doing this. And depending on how they're doing it, if they're writing a book or something, I have no problem with that. Or monetizing YouTube, that's fine.
Right.
But charging your client, that I have a problem with. Or using your client and their personal information, I have a problem with that as well. For me, this is God's work, and I'm not going to define God because I can't. But I feel that what I do and what the foundation and all of our members do is helping people and not trying to become rich and famous.
I do want to put a disclaimer in. There is a difference between, the psychic medium that you contact for a reading or a life, taking a look into that, or a specific mediumship reading, or you want a reading on your love life, or you want to know if he's going to call tomorrow, whatever, that.
Yeah.
That is separate from paranormal investigation.
Absolutely.
Okay? And I
don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy from you.
Yeah.
It's just the same as if you go to a therapist or a doctor or anybody else, you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
But again, this comes from my grandparents, and I thank them for that. They never took a penny from anyone to help them, and I won't either. For me, honestly, I live out of a backpack. I don't need much. Ever did. I spent 2 years in West Africa, in the poorest country in the world, in a mud hut. And it taught me what was important. And stuff is not important.
Time.
Yeah, time and people. That's it.
Yes.
Experience.
Yeah. It's a difficult path, I think, for anybody when they're choosing between this spiritual purpose and feeling versus maybe their 9-to-5 that they've had, a few years before. And there is this feeling that you get. I've watched it happen with several of my clients where they strip themselves of all the things, right? All the things that are big toys and just little bits of distraction that we try to fill our life with. And when they strip all of that and they seemingly on the outside have nothing, it is this renewal for life, this vindication that they feel, that it extends outward beyond them, beyond their family, their friends, their, old acquaintances. It is something that reverberates throughout the world, when somebody steps into that sense of freedom. And just before our talk last week, I was on another call with my guru, I guess you would say. And that was exactly what she was talking about, the sense of freedom and finding that and what it even looks like. And it really hit me about how, where I was, I kind of felt a little trapped. And it was getting fixed with other emotions and different things. I've not been one that usually hangs on to things too much. And again, having come from Hawaii, that's the biggest thing there is like, they don't care about things, toys, boats, things like that. It's all about the time that you spent. And that lesson learned there was just invaluable. So I try to carry it over here with the work that I do with everyone else. But now that I'm stepping into a little bit more of a modern job, modern career of real estate, I find myself, trying to balance the two of them. So with you, Chris, do you find that there's work that you have to do that is of service and work that you have to do that's more normal in the eyes of other people, spiritual service versus normal? And is there like a blend or a crossover with all of that?
Well, I'm working on a book. Eventually we'll sell that, of course. It's not going to be for free. It's a lot of work. But the money will go to the foundation. It won't go to me. Don't get me wrong. I don't begrudge people for making a living. Of course you've got to. You've got to put food on the table and you've got to have a roof over your head. And I understand that completely. Everybody should do that.
Yeah.
But if you're measuring success in life by what you have, by how much you have, that's a bottomless hole. And you're never going to fill it. It just isn't going to be enough. Another dear friend of mine was worried that they weren't giving their children enough opportunities. But their children go to a private school. Their children are loved. Their children have a nice home. Their children, have good clothing.
On the table every day.
I was like, I love you, but reevaluate it, because they know they're loved. They feel safe. They have all of their needs taken care of.
Yeah.
You're doing everything you need to.
Yeah.
Their choices in the future are their choices, but
Absolutely.
You're giving them a good foundation.
Yeah.
I'm curious now, with a lot of these stories we were talking about. Let's, for example, go back to the haunting in Connecticut one. Do people like this sell their story to these other media companies to be able to, one, pay their own bills, but two, do they sell that story so these people can make movies about what happened in their life?
Did, for sure.
Yeah, well, they did in that particular case, of course.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do with it when they did do that.
No, not you. They.
Don't get me wrong. If somebody had come to me, well, back then I would have said no. Today, I would want the money to go to the foundation.
Right.
Because, the foundation does need cash influx. We do need money to be able to get to people. When, for instance, we've got a case in South Dakota or in Miami, and we don't have teams in either place. We need to be able to pay for a team to get there to help that family.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't have the cash to do those kind of things. So obviously that's important. But what I've seen and it's a troubling trend to me is people coming to us looking for help, but with the idea that what they really want is, especially with my family, they want the validation so they can turn around and sell the book or sell a movie to somebody. And that's their plan. And they tell me that's their plan. Come to Australia, the most haunted house in our country. I really want you to check it out. It's been on TV, and many, many times my photographer will send you all of our evidence. Like, why do you want me to be there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They want that particular validation.
Yeah.
Exactly. They want the Warren name attached to it.
That's valuable, though.
That's not us. That's not what I do.
Yeah. This is interesting. I had the chance to actually watch The Conjuring, the third one, as well as that new Annabelle, the Creation one, Annabelle Creation.
No, the newest one was Annabelle Comes Home. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I haven't. I remember seeing. So The Conjuring, the third one, I don't know. It just
the devil.
It didn't scare me.
Devil made me do it.
Yeah.
None
that
of these movies
was based on a real case.
That's what creeps me out.
Real cases.
You know what scared me the most was at the very end credits, the sounds of the recordings. That scared me the most.
In Conjuring 2.
That was in Conjuring 2, yeah.
We watched the third one. At the end, there was some clips, and they had photographs at the end of the credits on the third one. The devil inside or something like that, right?
No, that's in Conjuring 2. Conjuring 3, maybe Conjuring 3 had it too. I don't recall now. But in Conjuring 2, you get the demonic voices from Enfield, England, and there's some photos. In The Nun, during the credits, they show some of the exorcism of Maurice Theriault. But the Annabelle movies are complete fantasies. There's nothing real about them at all.
But
Annabelle's real, but the movies are not.
You said Annabelle is real, and I don't know why, but Annabelle is like the only one that like creeps me out. And maybe it's because I've never had any sort of weird fear with any kind of dolls or any inanimate things, nothing like that. But maybe it's just because of the fact that doll does exist, not that exact one, obviously, in the movies, but that it's out there, that might, I think there's something about it that just really creeps me out. And I remember watching, I think it was in the third Conjuring, where they're trying to convince that lawyer, this like really stuck in my mind, not to like go for full death penalty or something. She's like, come over and spend a few minutes with Annabelle and then decide if, you think this is happening or not. And that just like, oh, that sent me, that was perfect. I'm like, that makes me wonder and so curious. But I also bet that's a huge reason, things like that, why people want to go there, why they want to go look into this museum, why they want to see the, the doll and be a part of it. And what I'm really thinking about now is, as I'm talking with you, is like, there is this whole like Warren universe, with all of these different stories and accounts and things. So have they, or whomever is in charge of the name, has it been sold off to these companies, or are these just little snippets and stories that you are working with these entertainment giants right now to get that stuff out there? Because from my perspective as an observer now, and now that I get to speak with you, it feels like there is just like, I just have this beautiful vision of all of this wealth. I'm seeing large bookcases and big libraries and castle-like structure of like just this wealth of information and stuff that can be used, to help people, like exactly what you're doing. And trying to find a way to blend it with, entertainment with people. It's such a weird, it feels like it's in this interesting flux state right now, where it's being developed into something useful but solid, if that makes sense.
Everything that's in Hollywood is Hollywood,
right?
And you shouldn't have any faith in any of it. Don't think for a second you're learning anything about the real cases or about my family. There are truth moments,
right?
Well, the gazebo, like you said, that
exactly.
was really honestly, I thought The Conjuring 3 was a much better love story. I'm like, oh, this is so cute than it was actually scary
breaking
to me.
into the morgue and my grandmother grabbing the body and all. None of that happened.
Quite dramatic.
Yeah, none of that happened. No, I don't have anything to do with the museum. That belongs to my mother and her husband.
Right.
And more power to them. They're for them, it's a business.
Right.
Okay.
For me, it's not. I'm only interested in helping others.
So this is why you said you're kind of, or maybe part of why you said you're like the black sheep in the family. You're off on this other path of being of service to yourself and others. Yeah,
we're very different.
Yeah.
The Annabelle doll. I have a Raggedy Ann doll, and I used to. I remember watching Annabelle, and I had a roommate here at the time, and I had said, "Yeah, that's not the real Annabelle. Obviously, this is what it looks like." Showed him a picture, and I was like, like that doll over there.
Well, you can understand why the manufacturer of Raggedy Ann
probably
didn't want an association with Annabelle. Did I explain why my theory? It's only a theory, but why I believe dolls have so many more attachments than other things?
No, but this bridges. I know this is going to bridge right into what else I wanted to ask you. I'm interested.
Well, there are other items that can have spiritual attachments, but that's just energy. Like for instance, I know you guys know what psychometry is, but for those who don't, psychometry is the ability of a psychic to pick up the residual energy left on an object like a piece of jewelry, something that a person held on a regular basis. And you can touch it and you can learn about a person. So that's a possibility. Same thing like desks or chairs, things like that people use a lot. Right. But dolls are unique. I can't think of another object that we become emotionally invested in and we give human attributes to than dolls.
Oh, okay.
So we create that emotional attachment, which
Yeah.
makes a spiritual attachment much more easy,
Yes.
much more simple. And once you've got that, then they can start to use that against you.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking about, our personal investment into it and how a doll is so perfect because it, you give it human wants and needs. Oh, she's thirsty, let's have some tea, or, whatever it is. She's sad. She
Absolutely.
didn't get her.
You have experience
whatever.
with that, do you, Brandon?
Well, after sitting with my my 6-year-old niece for
Yeah.
a month, we definitely make believe a lot, which I
A lot
absolutely
of tea
love.
parties.
Right. It's play. It's all play, but it's so serious and it's so real in that moment. And I can find myself easily getting lost in whatever she's imagining, it's so visceral for them. And, when you get on their level, instead of just being some kind of authoritarian, guide and telling them, well, that's not real. That doesn't exist. You just get her, they're not doing any kind of harm. Get on their level, get with them and play with them.
And
I
think it's important to keep in mind that we're all psychic, but children haven't had it drilled into their heads yet that what they're seeing is not real.
Yep.
So pay more attention to them. Because, for instance, my son, when he was young, not now, but when he was young, he would see colors around people. He would hear voices, but then as he got older, of course, the real world got in the way and he no longer was open to that. It didn't interest him, to be quite honest. And children are like that. Their imaginary friend may not be imaginary, and you should not jump to the conclusion that it's evil or bad or anything else. And also keep in mind that night terrors are a real thing, and a night terror is just being afraid. It's got nothing to do with the spirit world, and don't assume it is a ghost, because then you might manifest something yourself. Your fear will make it real.
That's exactly what I was thinking about yesterday. After the movie, there was like a little chill. I was a little creeped out. I'm like, okay, it's dark. Nothing I couldn't handle. But as I sat there, our conversation from last week came into my mind. And I was like sitting there and I was, brushing my teeth. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be really crazy if like the door slammed all of a sudden? And so I find myself staring intently at the door and I'm like, oh, so this is that moment where you're super fixed onto something. And if there is some kind of entity or attachment, their point of focus is going to go there too. So you've got this magnitude or magnified point of focus on this one thing. And then all of a sudden, if it happens, you're immediately affirmed of a belief. And that belief has now become a conviction. Yeah. And now you are like, oh, something is happening, which feeds it even more energy. So it was perfectly beautiful to see that in real time. Our conversation last week about, the more you focus on it, where you put that energy is where things can manifest. And you don't even know if it could have been something super simple and innocuous, or now that you have this weird conviction, now all of a sudden you're bringing in some other entity that might have been moving around somewhere and now it's attached itself.
And here's another warning for your listeners. When you are living in a haunted house, when the evidence has, become to a point where you cannot ignore the fact that, yes, there's a ghost in your house. It doesn't matter. Do not jump to the conclusion that every single thing that's happening in your house is paranormal, because then you are constantly feeding energy and it doesn't have to put out anything anymore. Every little nick, tick, and bump is all of a sudden something terrifying. And it isn't in reality.
A few years ago, I created when I first, kind of started getting into investigation and stuff like this. Was a few years in, and it was to the point where, you're trying to do your day job, you're trying to do your other job, you're also trying to investigate, and you're finding, especially, I don't know, if it was a universal thing, but we found in particular that there was just a lot of people that wanted the attention of it. This was at the height of ghost hunters being on TV and ghost adventures, and one after the next after. So everybody that called obviously had a demon in their house, because it just had to be a demon. It couldn't be just it couldn't be the wind, and it couldn't be Aunt Betty, and it couldn't be Grant. It had to be this. So I had invented this. I had come up with this idea, and I was really into the law of attraction. I mean, I still am, but I was learning about it. So I was, really taking a look into it and starting to really expand myself with it and understand it. And what I did is I actually had come up with this way of kind of eliminating, I guess, some of the people that we would go to, because it was a lot of work, a lot of time. We never just went to a case. Like if somebody phoned and said, hey, this is what's happening. Oh yeah, we're on our way. Like get into the mystery machine and with the Scooby Gang. You're not doing that. We had a 10-page questionnaire that we asked them to fill out that included about medical conditions, shows that they watch, not meaning that just that ghost hunters, if you watch ghost hunters automatically you're, productive. Right. But we wanted to see where their vision was, in some ways. But then as we got busier and busier, we had to, and we were just one small team, and, we've got kids, we've got lives, like we can't be doing this and then on top of it, you've got the 3:00 in the morning phone calls, and all of the other junk that goes on. So, so what happened is I created this thing called the notebook, and it was.
I have used that so many times now. Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. And it was the most helpful tool for us. And so basically what it involved, just because I don't think Brandon knows it, and explain it to the viewers, is when people are being haunted, our minds automatically, like as Chris was just saying, we automatically start creating things around us, or we start feeding off the people that are in the home. So, if the child is seeing something, the parents are going to heighten that. If it's the parents, the children, we're going to feed off of each other. So we got notebooks for everybody in the family. And what we did is we write down each experience on a separate page, as much as you can remember, put as much detail in it. And you turn the page, you turn it over, it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't go back that page. You don't flip it over again. You don't read it. You don't pass it to somebody else to read. It's your notebook, your experience. And then I got them to, and then I said too, if the experience keeps coming up and you keep wanting to talk about it, because once you write it down, you don't need to talk about it. It's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if somebody wants
to told people to make sure it was far away.
Yes. So, and that was the other thing is I said to them, so you put it somewhere where it's hard to reach, because if it's beside you on the couch and let's say you hear a thump from upstairs, you're automatically going to grab the notebook and you're going to start scribbling, and it's, the demon's got to be running around upstairs somewhere. But if you have to get up off the couch or up off your chair or stop what you're doing and go to a location to go get this book, so you might have to go in the other room, maybe it's on top of the fridge, your mind is automatically going to go, oh, I'm kind of too lazy for that. That was probably jumping off of the chair upstairs. That was the wind, or maybe something. So now you've automatically created from paranormal to normal, and your brain has switched. It's shut off. It's turned into a different point of focus, and now you're like,
instead of thinking it's paranormal, you're looking for reasons to not believe it's paranormal. And I tell people, put it in the garage or put it in your car. Really make it hard to get to. That way, only the real important stuff. And then give it to your investigators when they come, but don't share it with your friends. Don't look at it yourself.
Right.
It's not for you. It's just it's for your investigation team.
There's such a drive, I think, to share those things with people. It's a bit glorified to have some kind of supernatural experience. And so I feel a lot of people, they just want to talk about it. You know, they want to see, one, like you guys said before, some people want the attention of it, but two, you know, they really want to be able to share that experience so other people just believe them. You know, what is the danger in other people believing what's going on in their own either home or their own life? Why is that important? Or
you know, I get contacted constantly by people who had experiences when they were children or 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they've been carrying this for so long and they don't have somebody that can really understand it. And I completely understand. You know, they've carried this mystery for a long time. And so they're looking for someone they can share that with. But then there are the other people who watch too many paranormal programs. And so now that in their mindset is all about the paranormal. Yeah. And I tell people, look, if you really do have a paranormal case, do not watch any more paranormal programs. Do not watch horror movies. Instead, what I want you to do is watch comedies that actually make you laugh out loud, or watch relaxing music that makes you want to sing, not heavy metal, head banging, death metal kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I like hard rock, but make sure it's more positive.
Yeah.
Not death rap or whatever is out there. All right, I'm showing my age. But the point being, show your love for the people in the house. Don't have arguments in the house.
Yes.
Yeah. Clean your house.
Remove it from the home.
Absolutely. Right. And make your house clean. Get rid of the clutter.
Mm-hmm.
The old adage that cleanliness is next to godliness is accurate in that regard. When your house is all cluttered, the energy doesn't flow well. It's feng shui. And if you think that Eastern philosophy has nothing to offer, then you're ignoring billions of people and their experiences.
And thousands and thousands of years too of knowledge, right?
Wisdom is wisdom, regardless of where in the world it comes from, and just it's worth keeping in mind. Definitely, we tell people always make sure your home is clean and uncluttered. Make sure that if you've got stuff that's been lying around for years that you never ever use, get rid of it. What good is it to you anyway?
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed how much that will improve things immediately.
I cannot get this vision out of my head now with Marie Kondo going into houses and taking out a ghost.
I need Marie
Make
Kondo.
It sparkle. Does it spark joy?
Excuse me.
That'd be a great crossover. You heard it here first, folks. Hoarding will cause potential for haunting.
Lack of energy flow. Yeah. What I just I didn't want to keep you all day today, Chris. It was just it's just been, we enjoyed having you on last week so much. And what would be your piece of advice to people who are struggling, I guess, with the paranormal, or who are seeking help, or what would be your nuggets? I'm going to say nuggets because I know there's probably not just one.
Yeah, I talk a lot.
No, you have wisdom. That's what it is. It's not...
Honestly, the first thing is look at yourself. Why is it happening to you? What is the underlying thing that's making you vulnerable and not others?
Right.
Is it drug abuse? Is it mental illness? Is it trouble in the family?
Yeah.
Are you having clashes?
Yeah.
I remember, oh my God, this was many years ago. We went into a house in New Haven, Connecticut, And oh my God, it was so disgusting.
Like messy?
Oh, not just messy. I mean, raw sewage overflowing the toilet, flowing into the hallway, and they would leave it.
Oh.
A turkey soup in a large pot that had been sitting out a week. It was green, and they were offering it to me. Cat poop this thick on the floor, a floor that I'm sure was not black originally. And until they cleaned that, there was not a thing in the world we could do.
No, I mean, that's not even just physically could be poisonous. Energetically, my God.
Unbelievably bad. Unbelievably bad.
Oh my God.
And yet they couldn't see that. They could not
understand. Like they didn't understand the.
No, they couldn't see the filth.
Wow.
Which I can't understand myself. I mean, how do you live in that and not see it? But I've been also a child abuse investigator. Went into a house where the cat feces was so thick that they threw a blanket over it and a child was sleeping on it.
Oh no.
Yeah, the children were removed from the house.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Oh my
because
God.
they had 80 cats in a trailer.
Bro. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Insane.
It's amazing, isn't it, that people will, but they won't look into that as a possible cause or issue, or they'll focus in on this little piece that's happening, possibly maybe not be paranormal, and not looking at that whole.
Well, then they'd have to, like you're saying, Chris, they have to look at themselves to do that.
It's a holistic approach we take, as an investigator as well. We look at the medical, the psychological, the spiritual in toto. If you don't, then you're not really helping the family. You're not helping the individual in trouble. So sometimes they're so invested in believing that it's paranormal that they're ignoring the fact that they've got a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, or that they've got a mental health issue, and so they're feeling something touching their privates. But first, let's please go get it checked out psychologically and physically.
Right.
And by the way, when you talk to your doctor, and this is advice from one of our medical consultants, a doctor in Canada, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
When you go to your doctor and you're telling them about, for instance, I'm being pulled out of bed by a ghost. No, you say, I feel like I'm being pulled out of bed.
Yeah.
Describe the symptom. Don't describe what you think is the cause.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let the doctor come to their own conclusion, because otherwise they're going to think, schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it may not be that.
Yeah.
No, don't give them that kind of information. Don't give them your diagnosis. Just give them your symptoms.
Yeah.
Right. I keep waking up on the floor.
That is excellent advice. That is because a lot of people do automatically first of all jump to the paranormal instead of saying this is, even to investigators, right? They'll say this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, but they're attaching something to that happening. And automatically they have just increased or created, or you're not allowing at the beginning of starting an investigation, you're not allowing a leeway for us to say that could have been the wind, or that could have been this, or that could have been the plumbing, or that could have been the like they're automatically, because already that their mindset is in that place of it's paranormal. Exactly. And no matter what we say, no matter what proof we had, we could bring in, the best plumbing team in the entire world. We could bring in Roto-Rooter. And they will not believe that it is a plumbing issue, because they've already got it into their mind that it's got to be haunted. It's got to be this. It's got to be, that. And it's interesting because one of the things that we used to do too is we used to ask repeatedly or get them to tell the story, not all in the same session. Oh, how did that happen again? How did that happen again? Oh, how did that happen again? Because I'll tell you something, when it comes to the paranormal, when it happens, you're in this place of, you remember all of a sudden what you were doing before, what you were doing after. It's like, it is so clear. There's no, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, I guess it's like an accident. You remember it. It's exactly. Like, boom. It's so profound in your mind that you're not all of a sudden going, oh, well, I think they were wearing blue. No, it might've been red. No, I think it was no.
It's heightened awareness.
Yes, you remember it.
Extraordinary experience. Unfortunately for me, that's not the case anymore. Paranormal stuff happens all the time, and I can't remember any of it.
Right.
It's just part of my life now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But I found that especially for children too, is like children, because sometimes you probably have dealt with this in the past too, is where the parents want the children to be gifted, or they want them to have had that experience, or it almost seems like it's some sort of brand of my child is special when they want them to to go through that, and that's where when you ask the children, and we've had a few where we're saying, look at mom, did this really happen?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this in a creation that may have happened at some point, maybe possibly to you, or
I am super grateful that there are people like y'all out there that are genuinely helping people and putting things, back into perspective and where they belong. Chris, what is like the most important thing people can do to help the Warren Foundation?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, first go to warrenlegacy.com. and check out our website. If you need help, that's the place to go for it. We do have a Patreon account there. Nobody's ever done anything with it, but we're planning on offering some one-on-one time with people and things of that nature for people who want to support us. We also have a class coming up at Truckee College on the 18th of September. People may be interested in that. It's 1:00 in the Pacific and 5:00. Well, no, 4:00 in New York.
Okay.
And I know you'll put a link up for that, and that would of course help us, and it'll help teach you. I apologize, guys. I have to run.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I was just gonna say for those viewing, I'm gonna put the link in this YouTube thing as soon as it's done processing. It may not be until a little bit later today where I'm able to go into the description box and stuff. But Chris, thank you.
Always good to talk
so
with you.
much for joining us again. It's
My
been
pleasure,
such
guys.
a pleasure.
God bless you all. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
All
take
right,
care.
take care, bud.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.